Have you ever wondered how an army that was often outnumbered managed to conquer most of the known world? How did the Romans, facing foes with greater numbers, stronger navies, and superior terrain, rise to dominate continents for nearly 1,000 years? Their secret wasn't just discipline or armor. It was something far more dangerous, an unmatched willingness to adapt, innovate, and terrify. The Roman military's success was built not only on brute force, but on insane, unconventional tactics that changed the rules of warfare forever. These weren't ordinary maneuvers. They were acts of brilliance, sometimes ruthless, sometimes ingenious, that turned impossible odds into decisive victories. Let's dive into the shocking, brutal, and genius strategies that made the Roman army one of history's most unstoppable forces. 1. Decimation. Discipline through fear. Imagine standing on a battlefield after a defeat. Your comrades are exhausted, morale is shattered, and your commander's eyes burn with silent fury. Then, he gives the order. Every 10th man in your unit is chosen by lot, and executed by his own brothers-in-arms. This was decimation, one of the most terrifying disciplinary measures in military history. The term comes from the Latin decimus, meaning 10th. If a unit showed cowardice or disobedience, the commander could order one in every 10 men to be killed by their own cohort. Brutal? Absolutely. But to the Romans, it was necessary. It ensured that no man would dare break formation, flee the enemy, or defy orders again. It wasn't chaos, it was policy. The Romans institutionalized decimation as a formal punishment, a reflection of their cold, methodical mindset. They believed order was more powerful than mercy. One of the most famous uses of decimation came during Crassus's campaign against Spartacus in 71 BC. After a humiliating defeat, Crassus decimated a cohort that had shown cowardice. The horror of the punishment seared itself into the minds of every survivor. And the result? Those same soldiers went on to fight with a renewed, almost fanatical discipline, helping Crassus finally crush Spartacus's rebellion. Decimation wasn't about killing the weak. It was about creating soldiers who feared their commander more than the enemy. It forged unbreakable discipline through unimaginable fear. 2. The corvus, turning sea battles into land battles. The Romans weren't born sailors. For centuries, they were masters of land, disciplined legions, powerful formations, and engineering brilliance. But during the First Punic War, they faced their greatest naval challenge, the Carthaginian navy. Faster, more maneuverable, and vastly more experienced. On paper, Rome didn't stand a chance. But instead of trying to match Carthage at sea, they changed the rules. Their secret weapon? A spiked boarding bridge called the corvus, Latin for the raven. Imagine a massive wooden plank attached to a Roman ship, with a sharp metal spike underneath. As enemy vessels approached, the Romans would drop the corvus down, impaling the opposing deck, creating a bridge between ships. In an instant, a naval engagement turned into a land battle. And that's where Rome excelled. Roman infantry, trained for brutal close combat, stormed across the corvus, overwhelming enemy sailors who were unprepared for hand-to-hand fighting. At the Battle of Mylae in 260 BC, the corvus turned what should have been a Roman massacre into a stunning victory. The Carthaginians, accustomed to ramming and maneuvering, suddenly found themselves trapped, boarded, and defeated. The tactic was risky. The heavy corvus made ships unstable in rough seas. But when it worked, it was devastating. This wasn't just a weapon. It was Roman ingenuity in its purest form, turning weakness into advantage and chaos into control. Innovation, courage, and a bit of madness. That's how Rome conquered the seas. 3. Alesia, the double wall of genius. Fast forward 2 centuries to 52 BC, during Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars. At the fortress town of Alesia, Caesar faced a nightmare. A massive Gallic army inside the walls, and an even larger relief force approaching from outside. He was outnumbered, surrounded, and deep in enemy territory. Retreat meant annihilation. But Caesar didn't retreat. He built. He ordered his men to construct not one, but 2 massive fortification rings. An inner wall to contain the besieged Gauls, and an outer wall to repel the relief force. It was engineering insanity, nearly 20 kilometers of trenches, towers, and traps built under constant threat. When the Gallic reinforcements attacked, they found themselves caught in Caesar's trap. The outer wall held firm, while the inner wall prevented the besieged from escaping. The Romans fought between two fronts, surrounded but unyielding. After days of relentless assault, both Gallic armies were crushed. The defenders surrendered. Alesia fell, and with it so did Gaul. Caesar's double fortifications weren't just a feat of engineering, they were psychological warfare. They turned a hopeless situation into one of the most brilliant sieges in military history. 4. Divide and conquer, the psychology of power. Not every Roman victory was won by the sword. Some were won with whispers, promises, and betrayals. The Romans mastered the art of divide and conquer, a strategy as old as politics itself, but perfected by Rome. They knew that a united enemy was dangerous, but a divided one was easy to destroy. Whenever Rome faced coalitions or tribes, they would subtly exploit rivalries between leaders, sow distrust, and offer alliances to the weaker side. Then, when their enemies were divided and weakened, the Romans struck. During their conquest of Britain, Caesar and later Claudius used this exact tactic. They allied with certain tribes, like the Trinovantes, to undermine stronger ones like the Catuvellauni. These alliances gave them not only extra soldiers, but vital intelligence. Once Rome had secured victory, those same allies were absorbed into the empire. Divide and conquer wasn't just military strategy, it was a blueprint for empire building. Rome didn't only conquer bodies, it conquered minds. They used diplomacy as a weapon, turning enemies into pawns long before a single sword was drawn. And perhaps that's the most Roman tactic of all: victory without a single drop of Roman blood. 5. The testudo formation, the living fortress. Picture this: a hail of arrows fills the sky, darkening the sun. Most armies would scatter in panic, but not the Romans. Their soldiers kneel, shields interlock, and in moments they become a living fortress. This was the testudo formation, Latin for tortoise. Rows of legionaries would form tight ranks, locking their large rectangular shields above and around them to create an almost impenetrable shell. The front line braced their shields forward, the sides closed in, and the top sealed the formation from above. Arrows, spears, even flaming projectiles, they all bounced harmlessly off the shell. It was slow, but unstoppable. The testudo was used in sieges and heavy missile fire, allowing Roman troops to advance under deadly rain. It required absolute trust and coordination. One soldier breaking formation could doom them all. But in true Roman style, discipline turned vulnerability into strength. The testudo wasn't just a formation, it was a symbol. It embodied the Roman mindset: unity, resilience, and unbreakable order even under chaos. It was this discipline, not brute force, that allowed Rome to outlast every empire that challenged it. 6. The Fabian strategy: winning by not fighting. Sometimes, victory comes not from battle, but from patience. During the Second Punic War, Rome faced its deadliest enemy, Hannibal of Carthage. After crushing Rome's armies at Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and the legendary slaughter at Cannae, Hannibal seemed unstoppable. The Roman Senate was in panic. But then came a man named Quintus Fabius Maximus, known later as Cunctator, the Delayer. Instead of meeting Hannibal head-on, Fabius did something unthinkable for the proud Roman Republic. He refused to fight. He avoided open battles, harassed supply lines, burned crops before Hannibal could seize them, and forced him into long, exhausting marches. The Romans called it cowardice, but history called it genius. Fabius realized Hannibal's brilliance lay in open-field combat, so he denied him that advantage. Over time, Hannibal's army, cut off, hungry, and far from home, began to wither. Rome endured, rebuilt, and eventually triumphed. This strategy, mocked at first, later became a cornerstone of military wisdom. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in restraint. The Fabian strategy was proof that not all wars are won with swords. Some are won with patience and endurance. From decimation's terror to the corvus's audacity, to Caesar's engineering genius and Fabius's patience. Rome's victories weren't just battles, They were lessons in human psychology, discipline, and ingenuity. The Roman Empire didn't rise by chance. It was built on calculated risk, innovation, and a relentless drive to adapt. Even today, their strategies echo through modern military doctrine. Every army that values discipline, engineering, and coordination owes something to Rome. So the next time you think of the Roman legions, don't just picture soldiers in armor. Picture an unstoppable machine, fueled by fear, intellect, and unbreakable will. Because Rome's true power wasn't in its swords, it was in the minds that wielded them. If you enjoy stories of forgotten tactics, ancient genius, and the minds that changed history, hit that subscribe button.